France has entered one of its most turbulent political chapters in recent history, after Prime Minister Bayrou's government collapsed following a resounding defeat in a no-confidence vote. The numbers are stark, the optics damaging, and the implications far-reaching. Out of the hundreds of lawmakers who cast their ballots, only 194 stood behind Bayrou, while an overwhelming 364 voted against him, delivering a crushing majority of 280 against his leadership. What makes this loss even more significant is that Bayrou had himself called for the confidence vote, believing that a victory would strengthen his hand in pushing through a controversial austerity package designed to bring France's spiraling debt under control. Instead, he has been forced into resignation, and his downfall has plunged the government into uncertainty and President Emmanuel Macron into a deeply precarious position. This collapse is not simply about one prime minister or one government. It represents a larger crisis of governance in France, one where economic necessity collides with political resistance, where fiscal realities clash with public outrage, and where the presidency itself is exposed to unprecedented levels of criticism. Macron, already under pressure for his handling of domestic issues, now faces the difficult task of appointing his fifth prime minister during his presidency, or risking the destabilizing gamble of calling snap elections. Either choice carries profound consequences for the future of France's democracy, its economy, and its role on the European and global stage. At the center of the conflict lies the austerity plan that Bayrou had unveiled earlier in July. It was nothing short of dramatic, a proposal to cut €44 billion from the national budget, slashing programs, trimming benefits, and controversially, even eliminating 2 national public holidays. Bayrou framed these measures as unavoidable, warning that without them, France would face a financial cliff. He pointed to the country's staggering debt level, 113% of GDP, as evidence that urgent action was required. He cautioned that by 2028, France's annual interest payments on its ballooning debt would rise to an astonishing €100 billion, more than the entire education budget, making debt service the single largest expense for the government. Such a future, he argued, would leave the country unable to fund critical services or invest in its people. But while the numbers may have been persuasive on paper, politically they proved disastrous. The plan was seen as tone-deaf to the economic pain many French citizens already feel. Coming on the heels of years of inflationary pressures, stagnant wages, and high energy costs, the announcement of deep cuts felt like an assault on ordinary families. It wasn't just one political bloc that resisted Bayrou's plan. It was nearly the entire spectrum of parliament. From the far right to the far left, lawmakers united in their rejection, albeit for different reasons. The right opposed what it saw as an attack on national traditions and holidays. The left railed against austerity, arguing that it would deepen inequality and unfairly burden the working class. In a rare moment of consensus across France's fractured political landscape, they came together not to support Bayrou, but to bring him down. The result of that unity was a parliamentary revolt of historic proportions. The vote was not close, it was decisive, humiliating, and final. Within hours of the result, Bayrou's fate was sealed, and attention turned immediately to President Macron, who must now pick up the pieces. For Macron, this is more than just a routine government shake-up. It is a political crisis that strikes at the heart of his leadership. He has already weathered multiple rounds of protests, labor strikes, and fierce opposition over his reforms, most notably the pension overhaul that sparked nationwide anger. Now, with his government collapsing and protests looming once again, his presidency itself is under direct fire. On the streets, the response has been swift and furious. French unions and protest groups have announced major demonstrations in the coming days, with rallies planned across Paris and other cities. The symbolism of losing a prime minister over austerity has not been lost on the public. Many see it as a sign that lawmakers are finally responding to the anger of ordinary citizens who feel abandoned by their leaders. Yet others worry that no matter who replaces Bayrou, the fundamental issue of debt will remain unresolved, and the cycle of crisis will simply repeat itself. The international dimension of this crisis cannot be ignored. France is not just another European country, It is the Eurozone's second largest economy, a founding member of the European Union, and a nuclear power with global influence. Its political stability is not only critical for its own citizens but for Europe as a whole. Already, the financial markets are signaling alarm. The yield on French 10-year government bonds has risen sharply, surpassing that of Greece, a symbolic and troubling indicator given Greece's past association with the Eurozone debt crisis. Investors are beginning to price in the risk that France may be unable to rein in its spending or manage its political divisions, a perception that could drive borrowing costs even higher and deepen the crisis. Yet, there are important differences between France today and Greece a decade ago. Economists like Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz have pointed out that France's economy is still growing, with the IMF predicting modest expansion of around 1% next year. Unlike Greece at the height of its crisis, France is not on the verge of bankruptcy or dependent on international bailouts. Its economy is diverse, robust, and still attractive to investors. But that resilience does not negate the reality that without credible action, the debt burden could weigh heavily on future generations. It is not a question of immediate collapse, but of long-term sustainability, and in the current political climate, sustainability seems increasingly difficult to achieve. Macron's challenge is daunting. He has a few options, none of them easy. He could appoint a new prime minister from within his party, but that person would inherit the same fractured parliament and the same impossible balancing act. He could attempt to build a coalition, but the ideological divides are vast, with the far right and far left unwilling to compromise. The third option, calling snap elections, is perhaps the riskiest of all. With Macron's popularity waning and opposition parties emboldened, elections could reshape the political map of France in ways that weaken him further or even paralyze governance completely. Beyond the numbers and the politics, this crisis reflects a deeper problem facing France, a sense of alienation between leaders and citizens. Macron has been accused of prioritizing international prestige over domestic stability, spending time leading European responses to crises like Ukraine while failing to address the anger simmering at home. For many French citizens, it feels as though their concerns have been sidelined, their sacrifices demanded, while their voices ignored. The result is not just disillusionment but anger, and that anger is now being directed at both Parliament and the Presidency. As the crisis deepens, questions about France's role in Europe are growing louder. A weakened Macron may struggle to maintain his leadership on the international stage. Allies may find him distracted, adversaries may see opportunity, and the European Union may face the uncomfortable reality that one of its pillars is unstable. The timing could hardly be worse, as Europe confronts challenges from Russian aggression, economic uncertainty, and internal divisions. The idea of France faltering at such a moment is one that sends shivers through Brussels and beyond. And so, as Bayrou prepares to resign and Macron prepares to decide, France finds itself in a moment of reckoning. The numbers from Parliament may have delivered a verdict, but the deeper questions remain unresolved. Can France confront its debt crisis without tearing itself apart politically? Can Macron rebuild trust in his leadership, or has his presidency already entered a phase of terminal decline? Can the Eurozone weather instability in its second-largest economy, or will France's troubles ripple across Europe in unpredictable ways? For now, what is certain is that the road ahead will be rocky. Whoever takes on the role of Prime Minister will face a parliament hostile to austerity, a public ready to protest, and financial markets demanding discipline. It is a poisoned chalice, and few are eager to drink from it. Macron himself faces the possibility of becoming a lame duck president long before his term officially ends in 2027. The sense of crisis is palpable, and the stakes are enormous. France is at a crossroads, and the decisions made in the coming days will shape not only its future but the future of Europe as well. Tonight, as the news of Bayrou's downfall reverberates across Paris, across Europe, and across the world, the sense of uncertainty is undeniable. France has weathered many crises before, but rarely has it faced a combination of economic strain, political paralysis, and social unrest of this magnitude. The fall of a prime minister is dramatic enough, but the larger question is whether this collapse is simply the beginning of a deeper unraveling. For the people of France, for their leaders, and for their allies abroad, the next chapter has yet to be written, but it promises to be one of the most consequential in recent memory.